Damo, listening into another podcast this week. Why would you do that, Damo? Why? Anyhow, one topic which got discussed and got me thinking was around the up and coming talent pool across the UK promoters. Keeping it to the UK and Irish boxers, how do the asylum aristocracy see it? For reference, the way it was positioned on the other podcast, as I remember, it was number one Matchroom by a country mile, apparently. 2, Boxer. 3, Queensbury. Other promoters weren't really discussed.
Like, I know it appears like sometimes on the asylum, like we have an anti-matchroom agenda or something, or we've been accused of that before. But as I said, like, we're the can man, anyone can get it, apart from Ben Shalom, who's a great guy. Obviously, he's fucking streets ahead of the rest of them over there. But no, I think Frank has held up his end of the bargain there with winning the big purse bid in the White Fury fight. That kind of puts him on top. The AJ Usyk fight was a big event at Wembley, but DAZN and Matchroom haven't been delivering on the scale that they promised they would. So if they had been just carrying on about their business like they were on Sky, they might have kind of got away with this. But this, we're going to conquer America. Wait to see what's coming. And then, you're getting Golovkin, Canelo 3. Like, it's just, I don't know. Like, but out of the UK promoters, I don't know, and I don't give a fuck as long as I see good fights. Not being smart, like, to the listeners. Just, that I'm not invested like in any of the promoters. I just want to see the good fighters fight each other. So.
Amen. And sorry for the way I was talking that question. I tried to take a bite of food real quick, thinking the discussion would go a bit longer on the last one. And unfortunately, that didn't happen, and I was left with, oh, fuck. So anyhow, yeah, like I said, Steve, you are the consummate professional, and I'm just kind of here.
You're doing a fine job, Matthew.
Yes. What are your thoughts on this question? I figure after yesterday, you had a chance to maybe round out your thoughts a little bit more even.
Well, the consummate professional in me would have done that, Matthew, but actually, no, I didn't. I didn't round out any thoughts. I forgot all about it as soon as the call went down. But yeah, it was an interesting discussion with the boys. Matchroom, I wouldn't say by a country mile, and not at the moment. They kind of seem to be on the wane. Eddie's got all this good value going with people, but DAZN now is struggling a little bit. People, some of his fighters look like they want to jump ship. I know Lawrence Okolie's making a few noises. Liam Smith's not been happy. Felix Cash hasn't been happy either. Who's actually seeing them fighting on this app? So his stable's diminishing. Obviously, he's got the Golden Coastal, Anthony Joshua floating about. And wider, he's got, well, he's sort of associated with Canelo, but we're talking about UK and Irish boxers. I would maybe have Queensbury up ahead of Boxer at the moment. I know Boxer have signed these new amateur stars and that, but apart from the likes of Riakpour and Huey Fury signed to them as well, Shalom's starting to build a stable slowly but surely. But people are going to start coming back to Sky, I think, especially with Taylor there as well, and Joshua Usyk too being on Sky. That's where the Sky Sports News is, the pay-per-view. The Saturday night fight nights are traditionally on Sky, so I can see people going back to them. As for Queensbury, again, another golden goose for Frank if you're counting Tyson Fury. And Frank has that strength in depth as well, with good classic Friday and Saturday night BT Sports headliners. They might not be the most glamorous names in the world, but people like Anthony Yard, and I don't think Lyndon Arthur's even there anymore, but Jason Cunningham, who we saw, Zolani Tete, Brad Foster, Shiraz, who's coming up next week. They can hold their own on a Saturday evening card. So Frank he still knows what he's doing. He has that strength in depth. So I don't think there's much between them. There's no country mile, as this other podcast suggests. But yeah, it's becoming thinner, and I've made my feelings known on this before. I don't think it's good seeing all of these cards. I don't think it's good having all of these stations. It might be good for the boxers and getting them paid a bit more money, but people are starting to dissent now. There's people not happy. Isn't Billy Joe Saunders kicking off on Instagram as well about not getting a fight? So all might not be well underneath the seams, and I don't think there's much between them.
I saw someone on Twitter called Billy Joe Saunders, Billy Joe Launders.
That's very good. So let me kind of pose it to you that, like, this way though. I think this might be the direction fighters are going. Whether they're entering into the sport, different story. You got to work your way up the way you work your way up. And, whether you're fighting a fighter from the UK or Latvia in your third fight, who gives a shit? But when you get to a point where you're seeking titles, you're seeking opportunities, and you're an UK-based fighter, are you going to go with Eddie Hearn, who is notoriously arrogant and difficult to work with for other promoters? Or are you going to go with Frank Warren, who has a decent relationship with multiple other promoters on both sides of the pond. I think that answer is pretty clear. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, well, Frank has the history in the game. I'm not so sure Eddie's long for this game. Well, he certainly isn't in America anyway. I think he's made a vast personal fortune. Isn't there a stake of Matchroom coming up for sale? Yeah, I can see him being out the boxing game in a few years. I don't know whether it holds his interest anymore. Regarding the Kalle situation, he's done a good job with Kalle, actually. I'm not sure the ins and outs and the contractual things and who's saying what. Coley's clearly not happy, but Eddie's got him a world title and got him good paydays. And don't forget, Kalle, he might be exciting now, banging out the likes of Glavaki or whoever it was, but he was absolute dog shit in some of them fights against Askin and Chamberlain, hugging people to death. Nobody wants to see that again. And Eddie's managed to maneuver him to in the point of unification. So I'm not sure where the blame lies on that one, but yeah, he feels to me, him and old Satanta stroke DAZN feels like it's kind of on the way out, but he might bounce back with something out, but maybe boxing's not for him anymore.
We will see where Eddie goes in the next few years. Evening, Ed. He's got to stick around. You got to. I tell you what, he has got to be praying to multiple gods, going to multiple different churches, just to try to get it right that Anthony Joshua pulls it out against Usyk. It does seem like Eddie is getting a fair amount of your Olympians, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know. There's a few signed with Boxer recently, actually.
Most of them went to Boxer out of this pool.
And without giving a definite on this, I think I got to say that you guys have a way better amateur program than we have over here. And I really think whichever promoter is able to grab more from that pool when they go pro, that's going to be it. It's all about going off of that UK amateur system, which has been pretty strong.
Well, I've got the Matchroom rotor up in front of me here, roster, as you would say. So we've got guys like Alan Babbage. I know he's not UK, but he's kind of based in the UK, isn't he? Anthony Fowler, Anthony Joshua, Akib Fiaz, Billy Joe Saunders is mentioned. I don't know how relevant that is. Callum Smith, Campbell Hatton, Chantel Cameron, Kevin Ajako fought there tonight, Connor Ben, Craig Richards, Dalton Smith is an up-and-comer, Dillian White still mentioned, Ebbs, Felix Cash, Fabio Wardley, Ellie Scottney, the Yafais, Golovkin, I know that's not UK, Hopi Price, we've got JJ Metcalf, Joe Cordina, Jordan Thompson assigned with them as well, John Ryder, John Hedges, Buatsi, Galahad, there's a few more as well, but what do you think about those names, Matty? Anyone who stands out?
Most of those people are on their way out. That's the thing. When you're mentioning guys like Dillian White and Billy Joe Saunders are still coming out. When you're mentioning your stable, I mean that's what I was saying. It's all about these new Olympians because there's this huge pool of British talent that's getting ready to just be too old to compete. And a few of those names that you mentioned right there.
Ted, Matty was mentioning the Olympians there. I've got the Boxer roster up as well here. You've got Caris Artingstall, Lauren Price, Ben Whittaker. Apart from a few of the more notable names, Caroline Dubois as well, she turned over. People like Marku, Kongu, Natasha Jonas, Savannah Marshall, Richard Riakpour as well. What about Boxer's stable, Ted? Is it impressing you?
Yeah, they've got a lot of undercard fighters. I don't think they've got any massive stars really. I'm trying to think who's their biggest name on the Boxer roster at the moment.
Huey Fury is the first one they've got, and then Fraser Clark. Although it's maybe going
Fraser Clark is Olympian as well.
Chris Eubank Jr. as well.
Is Chris Eubank under? Oh yeah, he is, isn't he? Under Boxer now. Yeah, well, they've got Chris Billam-Smith. He's just gone over as well, isn't he? Liam Smith. Kalle looks like after his next fight. So there are a few co-main or headlines, but they're not massive names again. But Coley's world champion. Are the others going to be world champion? Probably not. But they're still starting from scratch. And they're what are they in? What was it, 6 months? When was their first show?
Yeah, the first one was that, wasn't it? Aziz against somebody, was it? With the heat map and all that. Can't remember how long ago that was.
Yeah,
wasn't that long though.
Yeah. So they are starting from scratch. To be honest, and Eddie's being a bit bitter about they're overpaying people. Exactly the same thing that he done with DAZN when they started up in America. So yeah, I don't know really. DAZN, I would say, it's got a better UK or Irish fighters, but Boxer are still in their first 6 months or so. So, given the time, given a couple of years, I could see Boxer overtaking, depending on how DAZN goes in the future.
I don't think you can have Queensberry behind Boxer at the moment, though. Do you, Ted?
Well, who have they got? If Tyson Fury's retired, who's on Queensberry now?
Queensberry, yeah, Joyce, Dubois, Adelaide, Yard, Callum Johnson. Then we're down to the likes of Zach Parker, Denzel Bentley, Hamza Shiraz,
Yard.
Austin.
I don't know. Yeah, maybe they've got more. They've got a few more headlines. I'd say Queensberry, but they haven't really got the depth. Yeah, I don't know. It's quite tight, actually. You say it. McCann is, yeah. I think he's got a fight lined up. I can't remember.
Yeah, he's fighting next week against somebody. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say. Yeah, I suppose they're probably quite even, Boxer and Queensberry. I wouldn't put one in front of the other. You mentioned a few of the bigger names, but yeah, I'd say DAZN in number one.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Joe, who came up with this list, to be honest with you. You mentioned Josh Taylor there. He's not listed on the Boxer website. It could just be a case of him not having signed with them yet or not. But I don't know. What do you think about the order of the list more than anything?
Yeah, I'm just trying to remember if I saw a Sky Sports ad for like their new boxing program, and he was in the front of it with like a weird looking haircut. It didn't really look like him, but maybe it wasn't him. I don't know. But I think I'll give you an Irish perspective, I guess, in terms of the up and coming talent from what I can see, my limited knowledge across the pond. But Queensberry have a few nice up and coming Irish fighters: Paddy Donovan, Pierce O'Leary. And just a couple of other ones escape me right now. Pierce O'Leary's a fun little fighter. He looks like he could bit of a banger. He thinks he's a switch hitter and seems to be a fun kind of style. Obviously, we saw Jarkel today. He's with Matchroom. He was previously with Queensberry as well, I believe.
Yes.
He looked okay today. He got tagged with that right hand over the top, like off fight, which was kind of worrying, if he's not adapting and still getting tagged with that in the latter stages of the fight, against a proper fighter, he might not last that long. But he's got a fun style. He really like the body work that he does. But I think in terms of upcoming talent, I like more so what Queensberry have in their stable from an Irish perspective. And also, actually, Fat Mick has a couple of nice fighters. The McKenna brothers, I think they're with him. I've liked them. They're over in the States before with their dad was basically touring around the States with going to all different gyms and trying to pick up bits and pieces and coach them side by side with the likes of Freddie.
They signed to Golden Boy at one point, one of them.
I think Aaron was, yeah.
Aaron was fighting in Golden Boy for sure. But so they're two that I kind of keep an eye on as well.
Absolutely, Danny. As for Queensberry, one of the guys shouted out, which I think was right. They might not be the biggest names in the world, but they do have a lot of people who could hold a card on their own. The likes of Jason Cunningham's, Chris Borks, Brad Foster's, even Dennis McCann. Zolani Tete's on their roster as well, so they have a bit of strength in depth when it comes to the kind of ice rink shows and the small hall headliners.
Yeah, but I suppose the way I look at it though is that really you are like you say, we're looking for the youngsters coming through, and I almost feel like we're getting to a point now where we've got so many promoters, but yet the actual up and coming talent pool is quite slim at the minute, and I wonder whether there's going to be a clamber at some point to try and get some of the amateurs up, or whether the amateurs will kind of start making waves in terms of trying to turn into a professional early doors, because there's space for it. Everyone's clambering around for the next pay-per-view start, and all those names that that have just been mentioned in the last 5 minutes, there's not many of them you could probably say they could headline a show, but they're not a pay-per-view star. And if that's the model that they're all going to try and stick to and retain it, trying to get the cash in from, then they've got to look for someone else. And I do wonder whether it's just going to be flooded at some point with these amateurs that we've not heard of, and they're just going to have to kind of, it's almost like in football when you take on a teenager and you're almost that's unproven. I almost feel like there's going to be a bit in that boxing to come. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I almost feel like the only kind of pay-per-view star that I can see that's still relatively young age out of the three of those promotional companies is probably Dubois. Now he's got a world title. I might be wrong, but that's the only one I can think of that's still relatively young. But I can't think of any kind of real kind of UK and Irish kind of person that could probably hold a pay-per-view event right now.
And as well, Danny, whenever you're clamouring for a pay-per-view star, you're building them and matching them differently. You're pushing them on to different fights at different period of time. Like Conor Benn, for example, is being matched with him being a pay-per-view star, I would imagine, in the future, which affects the level of his matchmaking and the risk-taking element as well.
Absolutely, yeah. You know, you end up seeing. Well, again, that's whether we slag Eddie off, but then that's kind of aimed towards the casuals, because obviously that all they want to do is go and have a night out on the lager, get smashed up, and watch Conor Benn because they've seen him on Sky a couple of times, and you know, think that he's a bad man. You know what I mean? So, but like obviously the people that follow boxing know that these are all just kind of people lined up and you know, ready to go down for Conor Benn. So it's just a case of like, yeah, you're just going to see these people just matched against nobodies just to build their profile up, and then obviously one day take that big fight and hopefully, you know, well, get a lucky win and then move on from there. But with like I say, with a lot of the names that we're talking about right now, I can't see many of them taking a gamble and it paying off.
Yeah, absolutely. Good point. Michael, give us your rundown on the top three by all means. But first of all, it says at the bottom, other promoters weren't really discussed. We mentioned Fat Mick earlier on. He's been doing his thing. He seems to have been excommunicated from Channel 5 and replaced by this god-awful Wasserman thing. Dennis Hobson's floating around in the background and a multitude of other lower-level promoters. Is there anybody else who's worth discussing apart from feeding them to the main guys? Obviously, the elephant in the room, of course, MTK, Probellum. Notwithstanding them, we're assuming they're folded. But anyone else worth a discussion here?
I can't really think of it. I thought Wasserman was like a huge company and they were going to I thought they were going to do quite a lot, but don't they have that Geordie Shore guy with the horrible tattoos as well?
Yes.
So yeah, I don't think that's a good look for them. I think it seems like Boxer have signed up a lot of Olympians, but I think the thing for me is like, where are all the personalities? There's probably, you know, there's a lot of talent in all the names that we've mentioned, but like, where apart from, you know, maybe like a Conor Benn who's been obviously built up for the casual audience, like where the actual, like, you know, the weirdos and all the personalities and stuff, you know, apart from maybe Ben Whittaker, who seems like he's a bit from like the Prince Patel school of banter, but at least he's like trying to like do something, you know, to get his name out there, be a bit, you know, controversial, a bit Marmite. But yeah,
early James DeGale, Michael, sorry to interrupt you, reminds me of early James DeGale vibe actually.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, just, you know, just someone, they don't even have to be a super talent. They just have to, I think boxing, well, England, UK boxing is just maybe lacking personalities coming through, because obviously we've got Chisora and White and Eubank Jr., you know, I guess he's, you know, I like watching him fight, but I'm not really a big fan of him personally. But yeah, I just think all these ones coming through, they're probably like super talented. But yeah, for me, I don't see like, oh, he's definitely going to be like the next O2 filler. So yeah, I guess, yeah, for me, it's probably the top three, Matchroom, Boxer, and Queensbury. I think they're a bit of a muchness at the moment with all that kind of thing.
Well said, Michael. Finally, over to you, Justin. I'm not going to expect you to come off with the intricacies of the Boxer stable or Queensbury or whatever, but any fighters that kind of catch your eye from a UK perspective, Justin, who do you look forward to watching, or anybody on the way up on these undercards, maybe DAZN or BT or whatever, that you say, oh yeah, I want to see him again?
I mean, I think Dubois, just because he's a heavyweight, I think everybody always likes to see those guys over and over again. But I agree with what most people said. Well, I think what's going to be interesting is because most of like the top guys at each stable are getting older. They're all in their 30s for the most part. So I think this is going to be interesting in probably like 3 years, the kind of turnover that's going to happen. So yeah, I mean, that's what I always wonder about, because like Matchroom, all their guys are getting older, and it's just like, what kind of turnover are they going to have? And I think that's interesting, more than just trying to figure, because like I said, they're all getting spread out so much. And I think that's the problem, is like you said there, they're just getting spread out, and they are going to start rushing these guys more. I think that's going to happen really quick. And I think these guys are going to start getting thrown out there a whole lot sooner than they should. Like Whitaker, I guarantee he's going to get rushed really quick because they don't have a lot. So you got to start pushing these guys a little bit faster. So I think that's just more interesting is just because the guys that we've been talking about, they've been around for so long. A lot of the older guys have. So I think that's just, I think just me. I'm just waiting to see who's going to be the next dudes that are going to step up. At least probably 2 to 3 years from now, most of those names are going to be gone. And then you got your next guys coming up. I always wait for that stuff to see who the young guys are.